It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my line mates, Devin Little and Delaney Rimer. And we're back for another show within days of doing one. We had a quick reaction to the Alex DeBrincat trade, but we're going to dive in a little bit more to see what the big picture is with him being added to the roster. So first of all, how's it going, Delaney? And let's start off with our one good, one bad for this past week. So there you go.
Well, I'll take the obvious one good, and that one good is Alex DeBrincat. Wow. Shocker. It's like we haven't mentioned that one yet, but I don't think we're going to stop mentioning it for a while. Yeah. And then one bad. It's too hot outside today. Yeah, I'll roll with that. I can't think of anything else worth complaining about, but it was hot today. So
it's a good bad.
Yeah, riding high off of the DeBrincat trade. So we're gonna be okay for a bit.
For sure. All right, Devin, how's it going? And give us a one good, one bad from this past week.
It's always good when I'm doing this show. Good to see you both. My one good is that for all intents and purposes, the Red Wings off season is done now. They got like a couple of things they got to take care of, but we pretty much know what players are going to be at training camp now. So that's exciting. Kind of, now we're just kind of waiting. Yeah. And my one bad is it could be that now we're just waiting, but I'm actually going to call out a comment from last week. My one bad is that comment that told me to shave my head. No, thank you. As you can see, I did not take your advice. I will not be taking your advice. Thank you for commenting, though. Thank you for watching the show.
Yes, I would agree with that. I'll go with the good and keep going with the Alex DeBrincat acquisition, because that is an amazing add to the Red Wings. I mean, he's going to be, for at least for 4 years, a very good piece to hopefully playoff team this year for the Red Wings. We'll see what else kind of happens, but it's a really good add to the top six. My bad is I'll echo the hot weather outside, even out here in the West, in the Pacific, in BC here. It's been, I don't know, I say hot, and this is like, I don't like 30-degree weather. So I mean 30 degrees Celsius, that is. I don't like 30-degree Fahrenheit weather either. That's really cold. But it's too warm. And thankfully I'm in a basement suite, so it's nice and cool down here. But that's a bad, being out really hot outside. But let's keep going with the Alex DeBrincat discussion. And since we did our reaction, not too much about reacting to the trade, but what does it mean in the big picture of the Red Wings in the Atlantic Division? Because this division is super difficult to get out of for the playoffs. You've got so many powers, not just established ones, but ones that are coming up. You got the Sabres, you got the Senators, both young teams that have a lot of offense. I mean, DeBrincat's not on the Senators anymore, but they still have some good players on there that are up and coming. So start with you, Devin. What does this mean? DeBrincat being added to the Red Wings from the big picture of this division. Does it make them stronger? Does it actually put them above a few teams, or does it really not change much?
I think at the very least, it makes them more competitive in the Atlantic Division. Do I think that they're now like a top 3 team in the Atlantic, a bona fide playoff team? I do not. I think that, just like you said, there's the last 2 Eastern Conference champions already on already in the division. You got Tampa and Florida. I don't think they're going away. Toronto's there, right? They're going to be good. We know who's there. And the Red Wings just aren't there yet. They did get a lot better, but I don't think they're there yet. Do I think that this makes them maybe more of a, more competitive for a wild card team? I think so. I think they'll be in that race actually now. And I do think that, you make a good point. Sabres are on the up, Senators are on the up. Even after losing DeBrincat, they'll still be in the mix. But the Red Wings will be right there with them. And I think that's kind of what they need, why they needed to get a DeBrincat is to at least try to keep pace with them, right? So I think Red Wings and their fans will be invested in the season longer this time around, which is pretty good because they're invested pretty much the whole season this past season. But they'll be even more competitive. Do I think that do I think they make the playoffs here in July? No, but I think that they'll be in the thick of it to the very end, and that is progress. I think a lot of it is because of the addition of Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think DeBrincat, it adds a different dimension to the team, I think, because, he's a bona fide scorer. We know he can score. 25 plus goals is something that you'd be like, yes, he'll do that for sure. Would you want more? Yes, but he's going to score at least that. And that's a big addition to the team that didn't have last season. Yes, he lost Kubalik, who scored 20 goals, but I think he has a lot more potential than him to do it more consistently as well. It won't be streaky. He'll be doing it more. So, yeah, I agree. Delaney, what do you think about DeBrincat being added to this? Not being added to the division, but he was already in the division. But being added to the Red Wings, what does that change in this division for a playoff race?
Well, I think I remember people saying that Ottawa getting him last year made them stronger in the division. So I'd say that the same would apply to us, but it makes the division itself stronger having players such as him in it. But I wouldn't say it makes the Red Wings like a immediate playoff contender because after all, it's one guy. It takes a team, not just one guy, but I would definitely say it's going to make them better. Like Devin was saying, the wild card spot will be more in reach. We were hooting and hollering towards the end of last season when we thought all hope was lost, but we were in that race for the wild card spot. It was not going to happen, but we were all optimistic about it for a little bit anyway. But yeah, no, I definitely think they're going to be a stronger team. They're not going to be throwing hands with Tampa Bay and Florida necessarily in the playoff race just yet. Buffalo's going to be strong this year. Bruins, interesting question. Because we still don't know about Bergeron, so that's a big thing for them. But I definitely think Detroit's going to be there to fight a bit more in the division this year. They're a stronger team than they were last year, especially with adding DeBrincat. So hopefully they can crack that 90-point threshold. That's what I would like to see him do. Get to 5th. That would be cool. I'm not going to be pushing for one of those top 3 spots, but any improvement would be great. And I know DeBrincat will play a huge role in whatever increased success the team has this year.
Yeah, you got to think about what he's, not just him, but who he's going to help as well and complement, because most likely we'll be playing on the top line with Dylan Larkin, like we said in the reaction video. And, what does that do for Larkin, right? He's going to be going to have a bona fide goal scorer right next to him. He hasn't had that. I mean, you would say Lucas Raymond's a good goal scorer, but he's not a proven one that's been able to do it consistently yet. So having a guy that will score when you get him the puck is a big thing for a guy like that's centering a top line, right? So yeah, I agree with both of you. I think the Atlantic Division is it's probably one of the tougher divisions. I mean, the Metro Division is no slouch too. I mean, they're really tough. But the Eastern Conference in general is tough. And that's why the playoff race is so interesting to watch, because you're looking at those teams like Buffalo, who's really I'd say they're probably going to make the playoffs if all their guys, especially if Tage Thompson does the same thing as last season and all their other guys keep growing. And all their prospects that they've got take another step forward, like Quinn. And I mean, Jack Quinn is injured to start the season, but he will be back. And it's that team is just scary. I mean, just looking at their not just the roster they have right now, but their prospects coming up. So I think they're going to be a big contender in this. I think the next wave is the Red Wings, Sabres, and the Senators. Once the Lightning kind of fall off, eventually they will. I mean, you'd think they would, But and the Bruins as well. I think the Bruins are they aged again, adding their free agents. There are a lot of older guys that they signed, and who really do they have young guys coming up? Like maybe Lysel's the only one that I can really think of that's going to be an impact player in the NHL. They got to really deal with their prospects, and that's why I say there's going to be a changing of the guard soon. That those teams are going to kind of flip with the Sabres, Senators, and Red Wings. And then you're going to have a different dimension in this division, which is going to be fun to watch. So DeBrincat does change it. We'll see how much he changes it. The Senators thought the same thing when they got him last season, right? So we'll see if DeBrincat can kind of move the needle more for the Red Wings than he did for the Senators. Okay, on that note, off the rush, our first off the rush here, starting with you, Devin. Not just who, player-wise, but what does DeBrincat change the most for the Red Wings? Who does it benefit the most, I'll say? So it could be a player, could be a part of the team. What do you think?
I'll give two answers: the power play and Dylan Larkin. We said it on that reaction show. Larkin's never had a scorer like DeBrincat to play with. That should boost his assist totals just by, just basic logic there. And then also the power play having a bona fide sniper like that on there. They've kind of been scoring by committee pretty much like the last 5 years and then some. They've never really had that trigger man that they can really go to score a goal when they need it. And they have that now. So between Larkin having more opportunities to make plays and the power play having an extra scorer on it, we should see some numbers go north this season.
Yeah, I agree with both those. Delaney, what do you think? What does DeBrincat benefit the most? Who or what does he benefit the most?
Obvious answer number one, total number of goals. He could be the first 25 goal scorer the team could have or this season. I feel like he's going to be the first to get there at least. And he's really going to benefit Dylan Larkin also, like Devin was saying. Larkin needs to have a guy on his line who can just score goals. And his points are going to skyrocket this season also. That's going to be fun to watch. I have full confidence in that at least. But he's just really going to round out the offensive end of the Red Wings, because something that they've been lacking is that consistent goal scorer. And he brings that to the table finally. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah. My answer is Lucas Raymond. I think he's going to benefit a ton, but with DeBrincat, he may not play on his line all the time, but he's going to help him because Lucas Raymond is not small, but he can learn from DeBrincat how to score, and not saying that Lucas Raymond doesn't know how to score, but having a guy that does, that's been able to do it consistently, you can watch him and take some tips of how he scores goals. It's big for a young guy to be able to play with a guy like that. So I'd say Raymond's going to benefit a lot. A lot of people are worried that Raymond's going to get pushed down the lineup because DeBrincat's on the team now. I don't know if that's true. I think Raymond's going to still end up being in the top 6. But we'll see how that kind of all shakes out. But we'll see. It's going to be fun. I think this is going to be the most fun training camp in a while to see how all this everyone kind of fits in with the new additions that they had this year. So it's going to be fun. All right. Before we move on and start talking about some other additions that the Red Wings could make, let's pay the bills, and here's a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
Right. Well, as I alluded to, let's start talking about a guy that's still a free agent, had chemistry with DeBrincat. Now you can guess where I'm going here. Patrick Kane. had ridiculous chemistry with DeBrincat in Chicago. Loved playing together. It's something that, I mean, you have to ask that question. I mean, Kane's out there, DeBrincat's on the Red Wings. So start with you, Delaney. This is assuming that Patrick Kane does want to sign with the Red Wings. Would you want Steve Yzerman to pursue that?
Well, like you said, the main purpose of that would be the chemistry with DeBrincat. And if he really wanted to focus on amplifying DeBrincat's game to the best level possible, then sure, maybe that could be his argument for that. But the thing is, I feel like Patrick Kane might not take a super duper light or short-term contract, since he might hold out until the end of free agency or like the start of the season or something to sign somewhere. So I don't know exactly what he would be wanting contract wise. I don't know what his currently is at, but I think it was Pat Brisson. He was saying something about, you could offer me a 1 or 2 year deal right now at $7 million, and he doesn't know if he'd entertain it. And the Red Wings have $8 million in cap space, it looks like, and they still need to re-sign players like Joe Veleno and give a contract extension to Lucas Raymond, maybe. Who knows? But I could see how it could be beneficial, because Kane has been a career offensive player. He's put up over 100 points in 2 seasons. His 2021-22 season, he had 92 points. You can't totally argue about that. I just don't know how attainable he would be, or if he would fit in with the rest of the roster other than DeBrincat, because I don't know if one player in chemistry with one player could be worth that much money, and if he wants more than 1 or 2 years, because he's 34. So you got to be careful with term on contracts when you're towards that end of the spectrum with age.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about Kane too is he won't be starting the season. He's got that hip surgery. He's going to be rehabbing. He may not want to sign until after that's kind of done with and he's healthy. So we'll see. I think there's been reports that he won't be signing until the season starts, or after the off season. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of deals with it. I don't know if he wants to sign with a team that is closer to a cup either. Like he may not see himself playing in the NHL for more than like 2-3 more years, and wants to win a cup in that time. I don't know. The Red Wings aren't there yet. We're saying they're not a playoff team yet. If it's Stanley Cup contender, a little bit far off. So we'll see. Devin, over to you. What do you think about Patrick Kane potentially signing with the Red Wings? Would you be interested in Yzerman pursuing that just because of chemistry with DeBrincat?
Yeah, I like what you said at the very end there, Matt, about him wanting to sign with a contender, because that's kind of like, that's what logic tells me is if I was in his shoes, I'd probably want to go try to win one more cup before my time's done. But we're assuming that he's interested in signing with the Red Wings for this question, so we'll roll with that. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say no for 2 reasons. They're kind of more or less the same thing, but different angles. One, I think ideally you want Lucas Raymond to be the type of playmaker that Patrick Kane was for DeBrincat in Chicago. I mean, you want Larkin to be that, at least for the first season, because he's your top center, top playmaker. That's what you expect. But you're developing Raymond to be, he's a scorer, he's a playmaker, a 40-40 guy, 40 goals, 80 points. And he's the type of player that, if he gets there, can play with DeBrincat and really, they'll mesh well together. I think that, you can maybe make the argument that, all right, then Raymond could learn something from Kane. Well, I don't know. I'd rather see him just get the opportunity to like be Kane than take a year to watch Kane and then be Kane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then to that same point there, 2 weeks ago, I lost my mind and talked about how this team didn't leave room for kids, and they don't really have a way to like really shoehorn them into the lineup. Well, if you add Patrick Kane, you're burying them even more.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Yeah.
don't even know if you have room on the roster to add Patrick Kane without putting like a Christian Fisher in the AHL. I don't imagine you signed him to do that. So they'd have to make a move elsewhere to accommodate that. Maybe you trade Veleno to somebody else. He got signed, so it's possible. But just logistically with the lineup, I don't know if there's room for him. And if there was room for him, I'd rather just let Raymond fill that role, or Larkin, or leave room for a kid to come up at some point, because I'm not off that soapbox yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's heading into his mid-30s. We need room for all of the kids because we have plenty.
If the Red Wings were, a missing piece or two away from contending for the cup, they just got DeBrincat, they're right there, and you feel really good that Patrick Kane's going to be that last missing piece, then yeah, all day, do it. But that's not where they're at, right?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think, as much as you kind of say, well, proven chemistry and all that, but Kane's not the same Kane from when they were lighting it up. I mean, yes, it wasn't that long ago, but I feel like Kane's kind of on the downturn of his career, and yes, he's still dangerous, but did he really make a difference in New York? I mean, there was rumors that there was a link, that injury was lingering throughout the season, so maybe that's why he wasn't as good. But still, I think adding a guy that's 34 years old, gonna be 35 in November, so by the end of the season, he's gonna be a 35-year-old, and it's something that I don't think it's worth it right now, especially like you said, Devin, with the prospects coming. You don't want to further block them. I don't know if Kane's gonna sign, like I said, sign a 1-year deal, 2-year deal. Like said, Delaney, $7 million a year. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit for where the Red Wings are right now. I don't think you need a guy like Kane, unless like you said, Devin, they're contending for the cup and he's a missing piece and all that, like the Rangers thought when they got him.
Exactly.
Right. I think that's where Kane is in his career right now, and that's where I think he thinks he is too. I don't think he wants to go to a team that's a few years away from being even just in the conversation of a Stanley Cup. So I think Kane's going elsewhere, but it's a good discussion, especially with.
It's a fun question to think about because the chemistry was there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But like you said, Devin, there is a guy on this team that could potentially fit with DeBrincat too, and that's Raymond. So we'd love to see him do what Kane did, 100-point seasons, and be that good with DeBrincat. He didn't put 100 points up, but close, or 90 points. So so we'll see. We'll see where Kane goes. I don't think it's with the Red Wings, but very interesting question to consider. Let's move on. And Delaney, you mentioned his name, Joe Veleno. He's the last piece of business for Steve Yzerman right now. RFA coming off a contract a little over $1 million, and I don't know what type of deal he's going to want. So Devin, we'll start with you. What kind of contract would you give Veleno coming off a season that, I mean, he had a pretty good season, 9 goals, 20 points, played almost the full season, 81 games, mostly in the bottom 6. What do you think? What is he worth?
My immediate wanted to answer was not much, but that sounds really bad. I don't mean it like that. I don't think his contract will be huge. In fact, I would be startled if it was.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a big year for Joe Veleno. And the reason why is because he's kind of been stuck on the 4th line pretty much since he joined the Red Wings. And some of that's probably by design. I'm sure they like him in that role. But if he's going to be anything more than a 4th line center, he's got to start doing that this season. He's 23, so he's got room to get there. But, tick-tock, you got Marco Kasper coming up. You got Nate Danielson in the system now. All these other centers that project to be, top 6 guys at their prime. Where's Veleno going to be? I do think they will sign him. You know, I kind of throw out the idea of trading him to make room for Patrick Kane. I don't think they're trading him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of take the same approach with Veleno that they did with Michael Rasmussen and Philip Zadina before Zadina went off and did his thing. And they give him a bridge, a 2 or 3 year bridge deal. Rasmussen's in the 3rd year of his right now. You give him like, under 2 million short-ish term, where you kind of at the end of it, what the player is. It worked out for Rasmussen. He's making 1.8, something like that, 1.4, even better. Holy cow, Ross is on a good deal. He's making just under 1.5 right now. And at this point, he's due for an extension. I think everybody would agree that he's going to definitely get a nice raise on his next deal, and they're going to keep him around because he proved it on his bridge deal. That's what you're going to be expecting from Veleno. Not a huge payday, but an opportunity to show that he can be more than what he is today. So that's more or less what I'd expect. I'd expect like a 3-year deal, 2 or 3 years at like 1.5 million per. Not a huge deal, doesn't inhibit them in any way. And it gives Veleno time to show that he's more than just a 4th line center. And if he ends up just being a 4th line center, I mean, he's pretty good in that role at 23 years old. I'm sure he'd be really good at it in 28, but I think that's a discussion for another show. Cause, I don't know, like I said, it is a big year for Joe Veleno. But in order to get there, he has to sign a new deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this before. 1st round pick, you expect more than a 4th line center, but that's where he is, at least at this point in his development. Delaney, what do you think about Joe Veleno? What do you think a contract is going to look like for him on his next deal here?
Again, like Devin was saying, if it's super high, I would be shocked. Then again, there have been some other things that have shocked me already this offseason, so I guess that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But anything below 1.6 million would be fine. We have the cap space. Well, the Red Wings have the cap space, 8 million left. You could still pick up people, trade things around with 7 million-ish remaining, but I wouldn't give him more than 1.6 solely because he needs to really prove that he can be cemented into that bottom 6 or middle 6. Middle 6 is a total stretch given just the sheer amount of talent that we have down the center now, apparently, with Marco Kasper, Danielson just getting picked up in the last couple years here. And Larkin, you got Kopp, you got Comper, you got Robbie Fabry, you got Rass. There's a lot of competition for him, and he really needs to prove that he's worth a bigger contract and also worth that roster spot over some of his teammates or some of these prospects. So yeah, I'd say in the neighborhood of 1.5 million would be fine. Just like 1 or 2 years. Wouldn't go more than that for now, solely because he really needs to prove who he is and what his ceiling can be before they give him more than that term wise.
Yeah, I think he's probably worth a little over. Like he didn't have, it won't be much of a raise, but
no.
He didn't do a lot. I mean, he had an okay season, but I think that's right. 1.5. I would go not much higher than that. Yeah. And a bridge deal. Like you said, Devin, I think he needs to prove himself a bit. And there are guys coming and pushing him. I mean, like you said, Marco Kasper, Nate Danielson is pretty close. On that note, he just signed his ELC. So I mean, he's actually could potentially play this season. Who knows? But not much room for it. But that's a good segue to what my off the rush question is. So let's go. Delaney, we'll start with you. Now that DeBrincat and Zadina's gone, so DeBrincat kind of replaces him as a roster spot, kind of. But does this make it easier or more difficult or the same for the prospects to make this team coming out of training camp?
I'd say slightly more difficult, solely for the fact that Zadina got to ride the bench for solid periods. during last season, and DeBrincat is not going to be a player who's doing that. So he's going to be actively filling that spot on the roster and on the ice. That's the main thing I would notice with that. And then just other than that, no, but it's just really the solid presence in the playing time that he'll actually get that'll make a difference, because I forget exactly how many games Zadina played, but I know it wasn't a full season.
No.
So yeah, no, that'll make it a bit more difficult just in terms of working them in, but that's about it.
Good point. All right, Devin, what do you think? Does it make it more difficult, easier, or the same for a prospect to make the team now that these two moves have happened?
Now I'll even kind of tack on to what Delaney was saying there. I think for a prospect to make the team, they have to prove that they can play in a top 6, maybe top 9 role. DeBrincat, like you said, Delaney, is going to be in a top 6 role. There's just no way around that. Whereas Philip Zadina, he might have been playing on the 4th line or not on the lineup at all. It's just, like you said, Delaney, there's one less spot, and that to be true. Now, that being said, I don't take that to mean that there isn't a path forward. I actually do think that there is a spot to be had for a young guy up front. But they've got to, like I said, they got to prove that they can play in the top 6, or at least, perform well in the top 9.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes it, makes it a bit more difficult because, DeBrincat's going to play. He's not going to be scratched. And barring injuries, of course, could potentially be something that happens in training camp. Fingers crossed it doesn't. But and it's going to be interesting to see what Nate Danielson does now that he has that ELC. And so that, he's an interesting prospect. I think one guy that could potentially get a 9-game tryout is him, because of the fact that he, like I've said this before, he can play in the bottom 6 and be fine because of his good defensive game. So I think he has a better, Marco Kasper, same thing. He could play in the bottom 6 as well. So, that's going to be an interesting battle to see both of them in training camp, because I think Kasper's a higher ceiling, but they're really similar in their two-way game. So
they sure are.
It's going to be fun to see those two battle it out for potentially a roster spot, but we'll have to wait and see. That's another discussion too. So stay tuned.
Pretty sure around this time last year, we were also talking about how Kasper could survive in the NHL right away. So that Kasper Danielson comparison is definitely a thing. Yeah,
definitely. So we'll see. They've thought to sign him to that ELC pretty quick, and sometimes it takes a bit of time. So it's great to see that for him, and we'll see what he does in training camp. So that's gonna be fun. Okay, well, there's another episode of the Grind Line. Thanks for the comments on the reaction video. Some of them were less. A lot of people thought DeBrincat was a good trade. So there you go. And a lot of people didn't agree that I thought that Ottawa got the better deal than Chicago. Maybe they didn't. Chicago did have the 7th overall pick. So, I kind of maybe jumped in. Maybe it's a bit closer. But all right. Well, it's a fun trade to talk about, and it's going to be fun to talk about as we keep going here, because DeBrincat's going to be a big subject as we move forward the offseason and to training camp and all the battles that are going to happen there, because lots of prospects. We're going to have the Traverse City Prospects Tournament coming up as well, and there's going to be so many prospects playing in that one, as there always is. So thanks for watching another episode, and make sure you're throwing those comments in the comment section below. Make sure you're giving us a follow on Twitter at THW Grindline. Also throw us a comment anytime over there as well. And make sure you're following us on YouTube. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe as well. And thanks, Delaney. Thanks, Devin, for coming on another show. We'll see if Tony's back next week, and maybe we'll get our foursome together again and keep talking Red Wings, because we'll see what else happens. And maybe there's some more signings. Maybe Veleno's signed by then. Who knows? But we'll see what other news comes out. And until next time, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.